So, I'll make this quickly because it's important given some of the recent news in the UK. Apparently protest laws are being, well, anti-protest laws I should say, are being implemented and it's apparently going into full effect and it's fucking everyone over. And this is where I'm going to say the really cold hard truth, and I don't care what fucking side you're on, you have to listen. Because the biggest danger to us, more than the government, are billionaires. And one of the things you have to recognise is they have all the money at their disposal. So they can do whatever they want with the government, just from that premise alone. You know, they pay the government whatever, but there are worse things that can happen, believe it or not. They can also pay people a certain amount of money. And I think this will happen in the form of bounty hunts, basically. So, when a billionaire gets a enemy, whether it's a public servant or a politician, they'll start putting out bounty hunts through the government, most likely. And everyone will get a cut of the money, essentially. The money ends in the government, and I don't know if the billionaires will get anything, to be honest, but, you know, they've got the money to waste, so it doesn't surprise me at this point. But that will spiral into complete disaster, because this is essentially what is the stylings of a genocide and a manhunt, because this is how terrible it's getting. It is literally the startings of it. And this happens because, again, too many greedy people at the top. Also we're talking about the billionaires who cause the most fucking problems. But it's really important to understand that this is where it's going. And this is how it can get so much worse. And the thing is, you have to side with someone who wants progress if you want to avoid this supposedly inevitability. Because the other things they'll do in that process, assuming that the world is starved of its resources and its population, it will get so much worse. You'll be living on rations, you're living on vouchers, basically, for basic fucking needs, like even drinking water. And they only keep you alive by the bare minimum, which is what we're already seeing with essentially the cost of living and minimum wage. And again, there's so many ways it can go terribly wrong. But when people don't have the energy, we don't really have a way to fight back necessarily. Which is where things get extremely fucked up. And this is why I say something needs to happen now before it's too late. And the other thing to mention, which I was going to mention after that, I think it is along the lines of, I'm a bit distracted. Fuck, I can't remember now. Right, it's too much fucking noise in this house. It's the other problem, because there's no tax, I can't get into a fucking house that, wealth tax. I literally can't get into a place that's suitable for my needs. Yeah, every single basic need is basically compromised. And the other thing that this highlights with, again, the likelihood of a bounty system for handing people who are supposedly deemed criminals to billionaires, CEOs and governments, you end up losing a lot of decent people, and you also find out that most of the population are corrupt. Because they'll take any payment they can to fucking manhunt anyone. You know, just to use a hypothetical example, as this is someone who's very much in the spotlight in terms of media and things about just stupid ass capitalism crap. Like, it is stupid at the end of the day, but he's very much a voice for all the people. And we use him as an example, so Lewis Rossman very much been fighting the good fight, And I'm pretty sure he's like a billionaire's worst nightmare at this point, because he's calling out all the terrible practices, he's trying to encourage change, and he's a big target as a result, and certainly a big threat. And because of that, there may come a situation in the future, not necessarily now, but in the future, where a billionaire will suddenly put a bounty on his head, saying that you need to hand him in for something like, I don't know, $100,000. And there are people who are picked up, which is an extremely fucked thing. Because people don't really care what the message is, they just care about surviving and getting by. And so long as that's an exploitable weakness, then we're not really going to have any control in the end. And that's why I say we need to fucking fight back. It's pretty much impossible to encourage change with the state of the current world. You know, we've got tons of problems, but they can only get worse because of what billionaires are doing. And it's even more absurd that you can even get funded by an enemy like Russia, like Israel. There's so many really fucked up things about this. And that's why we need change. That's why we need to be aware of these issues. That I'm like 99% certain can happen. It's definitely a scary thought. When I say that this is one of the most important videos you'll ever listen to, and it's true. You know, it affects everyone. I don't care what you fucking are, what side you're on, what sort of media or content you create. You're all going to be affected by this, and the only way to stop it is by standing up for what's right and making sure this disaster doesn't happen. You know, look at something like the Nepal protests, or even other places in Africa. I forgot what it's called actually. But somewhere in Africa, I think it's Kenya. I think it's Kenya actually. There's like massive protests, and it doesn't surprise me. But they're trying to overthrow governments, and that's definitely something to look at when considering the current situation we're in. And it's not really that hard to do. You know, it's just word of mouth. And something that unfortunately needs to happen because the world is in a terrible state. You know, the problem is they can't target people in these protests because they're even the people who would supposedly side with them. But I don't think anyone wants to stand with oppression, and that's a very common goal here. You know, it's not a woke ideology to not want oppression. It's in everyone's personal and best interest, because oppression leads to far worse outcomes for everyone, mentally, physically, financially. So you never want to see that world. And there's a strong emphasis on that. You never want to see it, because it's ugly. At the moment we're seeing the startings of it in the US, and if the US suddenly topples over because of what a fascist paedophile government wants to do, then, you know, it's fucked, and there isn't really any saving it until we go to war with them. It's the government themselves to save the people, and yeah, it's extremely concerning. That's why everyone's focus needs to not be on gaming, not be on music or art. You can make creative use of it for this current topic, but basically stop everything you're fucking doing. Start fighting. Because we won't have anything left at the end of the day if nothing is done about this. That's one of the biggest fucking dangers in our current society. Just be aware of that. Don't stand for anything the government stands for. It's just fucking useless at this point.